In this problem, we want to solve by factoring. So currently we have x squared minus 3 all squared plus another parentheses x squared minus 3 and then minus 2 equals 0. So one side is equal to 0. Now what you don't want to do is FOIL this first term out, because then you're going to have an x to the fourth and it may or may not factor by grouping. I don't know. I'd have to try and see, but I wouldn't want to really try that. Instead, hopefully you recognize that you have the same factor right here as you do right here. You've got x squared minus 3 and x squared minus 3. And this looks a lot like a quadratic, because you have that being squared plus that same something to the first power plus a constant term. So you should be able to factor this using quadratic factoring techniques, except instead of where you usually have an x, we're going to have, in parentheses, x squared minus 3. Okay, because this expression up here is a lot like, let's say, y squared plus y minus 2 equals 0. It's a lot like that, where y is equal to the x squared minus 3. Now, if you were going to factor this, let's see if it factors. You'd have y, how about plus 2 and y minus 1 would work, because your outside term is negative y and your inside term is plus 2y, which adds to positive y. Okay, so that tells us how to factor this one. In place of y, we've got x squared minus 3, but it looks like if we put a plus 2 and a minus 1, that should work, equals 0 there. So then we can set each of those two factors equal to 0. And setting this factor equal to 0, and then this one, we'll squeeze it in right here. And that one. Okay, these parentheses really aren't doing anything. X squared minus 3 in parentheses, then a plus 2. We can just drop those and then go ahead and simplify. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. And same thing here. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. And with these, you could either factor them by difference of squares, or you could move the 1 and the 4 over to the left and then take the square root of both sides. Now, if you move over the 1 and the 4 and you take the square root of both sides, you've got to remember to put a plus or minus on the other side when you take the square root of x squared. You know what, I'll do one of them that way and I'll do the other one by factoring. So on this one, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And then right at this step, what people often forget is the second you take the square root of a variable that's squared, you put a plus or a minus on that other side. And so on this one, I'm going to flip the equation around as well, just to make it read from left to right. Okay, so square root of x squared is x, and x equals plus or minus the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is 1. So those are the two solutions to that equation. And then over here, this one I'll do by factoring by difference of squares, because 4 is a perfect square, so that's going to factor into x plus 2 times x minus 2. Therefore, x equals negative 2 or positive 2. Or you could write plus or minus 2 like we did this one. Right there are the solutions.